Okay, so this is the first test of the recording rig that I set up to try to make recordings of myself sculpting. Um, Basically, I've got a foam core sawhorse essentially that sits over my sculpting desk. Um, and the idea is that, and then it lets my iPad sit above the working surface and record because I own a pretty reasonable digital video camera, but it broke and stopped working, and I'm sad, and I haven't been able to record for a while. But yeah, well, so I mean, the old camera was much smaller and thus much easier to suspend over my desk. The iPad is pretty hefty, and it required a lot more ingenuity to try to get it to stay stable above the work surface. But anyway, I think I figured it out. The one drawback is that my work surface is a little bit more confined than I am used to, so it's going to feel a little awkward for me trying to sculpt in this new situation. However, I am going to give it a shot, and yeah. One thing that's probably going to happen is just because of visibility issues, like if I hold the model dead center here, I can't see it because of the bottom corner of the rig. So I'm probably going to have to figure out new positions to sit in, new ways to hold my hands and so on, so that I can work and also record. And this new one here, like, this is not actually me intending to, hey, let's actually productively learn to sculpt right now. This is just me, I'm going to do some sculpting and just see in the end how the recording went. So that's all this is. So this model is something I've been working on. It's Nima Sitar from Infinity. So she was in a stupid pole dancer pose before, and I undid the right side of her body and put her in more of a kind of static standing pose. She still has regrettable sassy lady hips, but I did what I could with the model. I was just sort of stuck with that with the contrapposto they had set up. Anyway, it's better. It's not fixed, but it is better. So anyway, let's see if I can, after many years of frustration that I couldn't do this, let's see if I can actually productively record myself sculpting for you guys. Let's see how that goes. I'm just, I've got my computer in the back here and just firing up my reference material. I've got the concept art for Nima. That's the thing, I'm not doing any creative input on this myself. This is just me trying to reproduce what the model would have looked like if she'd been done in this pose. So I will probably skip through this segment. Probably. Oh, I know where it is. I have a lot of files on my computer, guys. Da-da-da. Nima ref. I found it! You guys can't even see what's going on here. You guys just see the model not moving. I assure you, my other hand is totally opening files on my computer. And now, because of the way my lights are set up, I can't see the picture. Alright, reposition, zoom. Oh man, we are good to go. We are set. Alright. Bam. So, what I'm working on right now is this shoulder pad over here. So I have attempted to simply reproduce the one on the other side. So I've got the basic outline finished at this point, but the detail is quite soft. And also the angle is wrong because well, see, if I go by the concept art, it's actually appropriate for it to stick out as far as it does from the arm. But if we look at the one on the other side, it is quite snug against the arm, I guess because that arm is raised, whereas in the concept art, her arm is down. However, this arm is about as raised as that one is. So I would say we probably... yeah, you know what? I'll leave it. What I was thinking about doing was taking a knife and shaving some of it down in this direction. But I think I can do without that. I think I can just leave the thing. What I will do though is that at the moment, so a big part of sculpting is just turning the model over a lot. You'll notice I've been recording for like 6 minutes and have not actually done any sculpting yet. But a big part of it is just turning the model over and just seeing where the silhouette stops looking like what you want. So this shoulder pad here, I'm noticing has a bulge out in the center. I basically want that to be straight down. So I am going to take some material out in the middle here with my knife. So this is a reasonably sharp X-Acto blade. It has to be a reasonably sharp blade, otherwise you can kind of mess it up a little bit. Basically the cut won't be as clean and you might take off more than you intend. See, even there, you can see it sort of like jumped. But anyway, this is all I'm doing. Ooh, yeah, see there, that is exactly what I'm talking about. So, as it turns out, not that sharp of a blade. So when I'm removing material, I keep my main clay wad nearby. So because the easiest way to get it off the knife is to just rub it up against the main wad, and it'll stick to it. Fortunately, tearing and ruining your clay on your model is really not that huge of a deal with clay, whereas this would have been a huge disaster if it had torn like that when I was using green stuff. Because yeah, if we were at this point with green stuff, it would be pretty well set. Like if we had this much, if we had put the green stuff on and put this much detail into it already, we would probably be on hour 2 of the green stuff's mixed life, and there's basically no way to cleanly reattach it at that point, which is one of the reasons I love clay. Not a clay snob though. There are definitely still reasons to use green stuff, even beyond, you know, I used it as the adhesive that sticks all this stuff down, but even beyond that, I still see value in clay, or in green stuff rather. Okay, so there we go. I've taken some of the clay off to try to fix the silhouette from this angle. And make it a little bit flatter. That has kind of ruined the surface. I don't know if the thing is going to. I don't know how to make this actually focus. Focus! Hey, there we go. That's how you make it focus. I touch the screen. So every time I need to manually refocus the thing, the screen's going to shake. We'll have to live with that. Anyway, you can see that it's kind of torn up the surface. But again, that's one of the nice things about clay. You just go in clay shapers and you fix it. So small brush strokes. I've actually got some shiny piece here, which is not the model showing through. See it right there. I think it's actually just like a little metal shaving that's popped off. I don't think it's going to make that huge difference. One thing that you'll notice that's a little bit different from my sculpting versus like actual competent professional sculptors, my clay always has like crap in it. Basically, I just don't keep my desk very tidy, so it's often like this is basically just an accumulation of dust. This wad will generally be in place for about a month before I scrap it and get a new one, and it's basically just a month of dust. It doesn't ultimately affect the surface of the model, so I don't care. I've just made my peace with dust in my clay, and in this particular case, like at some point I've been, you know, some random pewter shaving has gotten fixed back in. I can pull it out, I guess, but often I'll just leave this stuff. So, pulling this out. Oh, it was actually a reasonably large chunk, actually. So, which is, you know, one argument for not... actually, that is a large enough chunk that has just been pulled out that I'm actually going to put clay in to replace it. So, let's go back and get one of these shavings we pulled off earlier, and we will reapply it as a patch. I could just pull the two sides together to fix this, but the correct way to do this is to actually fill the gap. So as always, the clay goes on with a metal tool, and you just sort of put it into the location and the rough shape that you need it. And then a clay shaper gets pulled out and it gets smoothed into place. But yeah, no, so one of the downsides of having gross, dirty clay the way I do, and again, there's nothing wrong, it's just dust. But one of the downsides is that it's actually very hard for me to show that my surfaces are clean, because if my, when I have a brand new wad of clay, newly mixed with no dust in it, if I make a really perfect surface, I can like hold it up to the light and it'll shine, you'll be able to see the light glinting over it. Whereas you basically can't see that when it's got the dust in it. But to fix that problem, I would need to be a grown-up and clean my workspace like ever, and that's just not a price I'm willing to pay. So yeah, you get dusty models, and that's why I don't do this as my job. Because I don't have to worry about selling these to anybody. I just make them for me. And in that particular client relationship, the client does not care whether there is dust present in the model. This, incidentally, strikes me as one other thing that I'm going to have to adapt to if I am planning to make sculpting videos of this nature, is, yeah, I am going to end up talking a lot about random crap like this. And I'm going to run out of things to say. So, I don't know. I have to sort of figure out, do I want to do long run sculpting videos where I basically work for 2 hours and you see the entire, and I post a 2-hour video, or, actually I don't even know if I can physically do that on my YouTube channel because I have a number of copyright strikes because of the music on my old art videos. So I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but even if I was allowed to do it, that might become kind of boring. Or do I want to record the 2 hours and then post like slices? So record 2 hours and then, you know, make a 10-minute highlight video. That's another decision I'm going to have to make if this process works out. I have to say, so far, I am liking what I'm seeing. The image quality on the iPad camera is quite good. I'm pretty sure it records in 1080p, and the autofocus is working pretty well. Actually, no, it's not autofocusing. Where I touched the screen before, it seems to be remembering the distance to the model at that point, and it has locked because you can't see this, but there's a little square on the screen, and it's exactly where I touched before. So it remembers that I told it to look here, and where the model was there. And so yeah, so it looks like as long as I make a point of manually touching the screen and not letting it autofocus, that I actually don't need, because sometimes I don't know if you've ever noticed with any of my videos, I'm really bad at video. I don't know if you ever noticed any of my videos, is that sometimes they'll go fuzzy for a second and then come back, and that's because I usually just let it autofocus. And then sometimes the autofocus gets confused by what it's supposed to be paying attention to. But I'm noticing pretty good results from manually focusing, so maybe that will be a thing I will keep doing. I don't know. Okay. So I'm just, so you can see I've basically smoothed up. Again, I don't know how much you can actually, or how much you can tell, but the current state of this shoulder pad is that the main surface is back to being smooth. After I removed that extra material, it doesn't bow out nearly as much here. It does ever so slightly, but it's to the degree where I don't notice or care, so it's fine. And now I'm kind of working on the edges, because the edges, as you can see, are quite soft. Like, you know, if you look at this is supposed to be a sharp corner right here, and it is absolutely not a sharp corner. So in order to firm that up, I'm going to grab a metal tool, and I'm going to try to turn this into a sharp corner, although the fact that, okay, so this isn't, so the metal armature underneath this particular shoulder here is about here, and all of this is just a wad of clay, and I know that doesn't look like a very long distance, but that's enough distance where where the clay starts to wobble, and as I push on it, it slightly bends away from the tool. So it starts to become, it's not too bad here. I will be able to achieve it ultimately, but if this was even a little bit bigger, like if the shoulder pad went out to here, let's say, I probably wouldn't be able to put sharp corners in it without putting reinforcement underneath, just because the armature would not hold it steady. So, okay, so yeah, so to fix this, I'm going to go over it with metal tool. This is going to require a lot of iteration. I mean, as with everything in sculpting requires iteration. You do it, you know, so here I go to one of these sides here, and then doing this side, it pushes the material out over here and it kind of screws up the adjacent areas. So then you have to go to the adjacent area. So again, I'm trying to fix this corner. I'm going to push that back, which is going to kind of push the whole top of the shoulder pad over as I'm doing this. So then before it goes too far, like I'm not trying to do the entire job, I'm doing some of the pushing, and then I go to the adjacent areas and I smooth them. I'm not sure how to, I'd like to go behind the shoulder pad from this side and push it back slightly, but that angle is quite awkward. I don't know if that's feasible, but yeah, so generally when you're trying to create a corner, you click on, you put the tool on the center area and you kind of pull toward the sharp corner you want to make. So here I start on this side, I start at the bottom and I pull up. Here I go here and I pull back, and here I go here and I pull up and left. And again, I'm just pulling the material toward the corner so that it starts to stick. And you can see that I have started to create a bit more of an actual corner here compared to a moment ago. And yeah, guys, this is what you've been missing. This is the endless thrill ride that is sculpting. Please, please don't all rush to the craft store at once. There's only so much Fimo to go around. I don't know if the worldwide craft store economy can support the fives of my viewers going out and becoming sculptors all at once. You may have to wait your turn. There may be some back orders involved. Okay, I'm going to end that joke now. Okay, so that corner is not looking too bad, although you can see that it no longer is like a straight line, it's like curved. That's going to be a little hard to fix. So that's the thing. For step one is make a sharp corner, and then step two is put that sharp corner where you actually want it to be. From here, it's also migrated a bit. It's more toward the center than I wanted it. Let me just check this side. Actually, it's not too bad. So this shoulder actually has the prongs at the bottom angled outward. Mine goes straight down, so I'm going to have to adjust that. And so basically, it looks like from here, that line is almost a continuation down to here. So yeah, so it does buckle in, and I'll need to fix that, but it's not quite as bad. So like, yes, I accidentally, as I was doing all of what you just watched, I accidentally pushed the whole corner further to the center, but it looks like just by a fluke that's where it needed to be. And even with that said, I mean, even if I had done that process and that was not where it needed to be, I mean, that's still just something that happens. Like, the clay is inherently just something that's very soft, and it just kind of goes where it wants to sometimes, and then it's just a matter of you have to break it from one angle, turn it a bit, fix it from that angle, fix it from another angle, fix it, and then all that fixing breaks it from that original angle, and you have to go back to, like, there's a lot of going back and redoing. You cannot be in a hurry when you're doing this. Let's create that corner. Again, I'm trying to mimic the other side and make this kind of be this type of angle. So this is wrong. I have to say, this is my second time like trying to fully reproduce detail on a model. I mean, I've done some like green stuff, like, you know, building arms and legs on Pano models, but I will say the Pano models are much simpler, and I wasn't trying nearly as hard. Just because the panels are simpler, and I mean, because I wasn't planning to paint them particularly well, so they were never going to look all that great. I just didn't. I didn't put that much effort into it. I didn't put that much sculpting quality. Whereas with this, I am trying as hard as I possibly can, and a lot of that is just because, holy crap, is this ever a detailed model? Like compared to the smooth panels on the Panosianian models I've done, this is an utterly insane amount of detail, utterly insane. And I actually took that as an interesting challenge. So it's definitely been a learning experience, you know, doing all of the little muscle striations, and then the little strap that sits over the muscle striations, and then all the like, and you can see I still have a lot of like all the work I've just done up here to fix a corner. I have a lot more of that to do at the bottom here. Some of those corners are still a bit soft. But yeah, it's my second time reproducing a model after, if any of you followed the blog, not this blog, but the Lost Hemisphere blog, the first time around when I used to do Free Time Black Hole, I did a reproduction, sort of a Troll Bloods model for War Machine. It was, what was his name? Jarl Skuld. And it was essentially a reproduction, but it was at a smaller scale than the actual model because it was a pig troll, not an actual full troll, or not a troll blood, I guess is the nomenclature there. So essentially, I was reproducing a model, but at a smaller scale. But I was still trying to get all of the same detail onto the model, and I learned so much as a result of that effort. And like, if you are trying to develop as a sculptor, I actually really strongly recommend, as a learning exercise, just doing some reproductions. Like, you know, I said I'm reproducing essentially about half a model here. There's tons to learn just by doing this, and like, especially like in this, a reproduction of half of a model like this is very interesting because, like, your reference is literally right there. Your reference is 7 millimeters from where you're working. So it makes it just a matter of look and reproduce, look and reproduce, look and reproduce. It's a very mechanical effort, and I don't know, it just takes a lot of, like, it's still very, very challenging, but it takes a lot of the challenge out of the, like, making your own creative things and trying to make them look as good, your own creations look as good as a professional model is always going to be challenging, and this, I don't know, takes that expectation out. I don't know, I'm kind of blathering now. I don't actually know where I was going with this point, other than to say it's my second reproduction, and I'm very much enjoying it, and it's taking a really, really, really long time, but it's, I like the result, and I am enjoying the effort, and I'm learning. This model, in fact, is actually so detailed that it initially made me think that that the original model was a 3D sculpt, because when you're doing a 3D sculpt versus a traditional sculpt, it's just you can put more detail in it, because you can be sculpting it and be like, I want to put more detail into these stomach grooves. Well, you can just take the model on your screen and just zoom in and then just start carving small details into it. Like, there's no limit to how small of a detail. Now, ultimately, it's going to be restricted by your 3D printer. But still, you will be able to get sharper corners, pieces flying off of the model, which are very hard to do with things. Like, there are just things that you can do with a 3D sculpt, and there are some things going on here with the level of detail that, to me, identified themselves as 3D sculpt. However, it is not a 3D sculpt. Someone posted on the CB forums, like we were just this past week, and they were saying that this was actually Jose Luis Rig, I believe his name, Rig. It was all done traditional sculpted. Like, he just freaking powered through it, and holy crap, that was insane. I mean, I feel like I'm demonstrating that, yes, that is achievable, and I now understand how that could actually have been done by hand, but still, holy crap. I would not have wanted to do this by hand if I had the choice, because that guy now does 3D sculpts. So it's, I don't know, It's interesting. So, one other thought, and actually just what I'm going to do really quickly is the, again, just when you're sculpting, a lot of it is just, turn the model over and turn the model over a little bit to make sure that all your angles line up, and also turn over to look at your reference and make sure that everything is still where it needs to be. So here, these side tabs are too big on mine. They should be a lot smaller. So I may end up, there's someone screaming outside my window. Yeah, it only needs to go to about here. I may end up re-adding some material here later, but that's the nice thing about clay. You can do that. Interestingly, I learned to do Fimo sculpting. I'd done green stuff, self-taught for years and years, but I'm noticing something else. Don't worry about it for now. From a video from Aragorn Marks, who was one of the old confrontation. Holy crap, Parson! Seriously, give up. My building doesn't have a buzzer system, so people just sometimes, not often, but sometimes will just stand outside the building and scream. Yeah, it's really pleasant. Sigh. Yeah, so I'm just trying to make that is still bothering me because the angle isn't right. So I may have to actually screw up my nice little corner there. Yeah, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to take the wad and put it at the bottom. So we are essentially wrecking the corner I made. But that's fine. That's how clay sculpting works. You can always no matter what you do with clay, you can fix it. Until you cook it, you can always fix it. So there we go. And even then, it hasn't totally screwed it up. It's kept some of the sharpness we had before. Man, I am really tempted to go to the window and yell at that person. I was totally going somewhere, and I was going to say something, and I have completely lost my train of thought because of that crazy lady yelling at my building. Sigh. This is having a negative impact on my first sculpting video, I must say. The other thing I noticed, incidentally, is that the shoulder pad on this side is actually quite flat, whereas mine is quite rounded. That is something I'm going to have to fix. It's not perfectly flat, but it is much more flat than mine. Like this, mine should only round to about here instead of here, so I'm off by about a full millimeter. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, it's a lot. And this modification is a little bit challenging because essentially I have to pull the material away from the support and leave it hanging out. So I may have to actually just apply more material. See, I can leave a little bit of an unsupported lip here, but I shouldn't leave too much. I should, yeah, see, that's closer to the level of angle I want, and then I need to do the same thing on the other side here. It's kind of a pain because it's really hard to get, because of this backpack, it's actually pretty hard to get in there. I'm just noticing that the model is wandering around on the screen. Something else I'm going to have to get used to. So this is where we get into the challenging aspects of sculpting, is where do you put your hands. So I need to get in here, and I need to get straight in here, but I need to make sure that I'm not touching any of the clay. And it's somewhat forgiving here because my thumb can touch this, the metal side. But if this was a fully sculpted model, I would have to do this. So here, I'm just to maintain the discipline, I'm going to do it without touching the model. But yeah, so holding my hand like this. And yeah, sometimes you have to come up with some pretty interesting positions for your hands. I will allow myself to touch the end of this because if that was a sculpted piece, I would have a wire coming out of each side and it would be stable. So I'm going to pretend that I'm putting my hand on the supporting wire. But anyway, I'm going to come in here. And I'll try to lift. Now this is not going as nicely. This will, I'm pretty sure, require some extra material to go behind, because I think when I come back in with a clay shaper, so you can see I've kind of created a better like flat shape here. But when I come in with a clay shaper to smooth it out, that is almost certainly going to fall most of the way back. So I've created the lip on both sides. You can kind of see it there. But yeah, now we need to fix the surface because it's all very bulgy and bubbly now. But again, that's the process. The process is you make a fix to get it closer to what you want, and then you turn it and you see that it's wrong from some other way, and then you fix it in that way. And again, when I'm fixing the bulge here, basically I've got a high here and then it dips a little bit kind of on the crease of where I folded it up, and then it bulges back up where I push it up with the tool. I'm trying to fix this, and instead of just doing this, if I were to do this motion, it's going to flatten back over. If I do in this way, we're going to lose the lip. So I'm going to try to just do pressing straight down so that it won't. If I do a pulling motion, it'll fall. I'm just going to do mostly a pressing motion to try to restore this. It's another one of the, and even that is going to push it down a bit, so I have to be careful. But yeah, this is another one of the essential skills for sculpting, is figuring out which hand motions are going to achieve the effect that you are after. You know, knowing without touching the model what would happen if you were to touch the model in one way or another. Because a lot of the times, I mean, again, clay is very forgiving, but if you're working green stuff is very unforgiving. It's very easy to irreversibly break a piece of green stuff detail. And even with clay, like, you can ruin hours of work. It's always correctable with clay, but I mean, if you're a professional and you're on a deadline and you need to feed your family, you can't afford to be ruining hours of work. So you need to know before you do anything where your holding hand goes and which tool to pull out, and how to put your hand around the tool, and then how to press that onto the model in order to get what you're after. And oh, that sounds pretty fun, pretty basic, but trust me, it takes years to build up that kind of instinct, to be able to just know that without even really thinking about it. So again, I'm trying to reinforce the shape, trying to make sort of like a Captain America forehead A, I guess. So this needs to go out to about here, this whole little bottom piece here. Here, I'll show you the fun. This piece is now actually like way out of whack compared to where it's supposed to be. But I'll show you the really fun flexibility of clay, which is I'm just going to shear it all over. It is not where I want it, so I will put it where I want it. I'm going to have to lift it up. Still wandering around all over the video screen, and you can see it's fallen again. And that is always going to happen. As long as I'm working on this, it's going to keep falling down, and I'm going to have to keep lifting it up. Digging a little trench underneath it here to pull it away from the arm. And that lifts it up. And you can see it's much better in the line from the top of the shoulder pad. It's still not perfect, but it's better. And yeah, so this is improving the shape of the shoulder pad. Incidentally, I don't have any particular I don't have any particular goal for this video. This was literally just a technology test. I wanted to see how my my video sawhorse is working. So I mean, I will just have to decide at some point that the video is finished, even though I haven't finished. But I mean, like, if I can actually convey some sculpting knowledge on y'all, hey, bonus. So anyway, so I mean, yeah, so there you can kind of see what I've been going for. So I was I guess back up to the start of the video and see what the shoulder pad looked like then, and compared to now, and you can see that it's got a more consistent, I mean, there's still probably hours of work to do on this shoulder pad to match it here. I mean, at the bare minimum, I have to put the two little bumps, 1 and 2. I have to reproduce those. which is just a matter of I go back to my wad, I cut off some very tiny little putty, I always call it putty, some clay shreds, apply the shred, and then just press it in and shape it. I'm not going to go through this. I feel like I'm wrapping up the video. That's I feel like that's where we're going right now. So to sum up, yeah, that's basically what I mean. I still need to fix the shape, and it may not be flat enough, so I may need to do more pulling. But and then as I go through and work on the arm underneath, because I had some plates sculpted underneath, but putting the shoulder pad on has wrecked most of the upper arm. So I'm going to have to go back and fix that, and then adding those is going to wobble and possibly add some nicks to the to the work I've done on the shoulder pads, and then I have to come back to the shoulder pad and fix it, which might go to the arm again. I mean, it's all just a matter of, you're just making a little fix. You fix it from an angle, you fix one area, and no matter what you do, you're always going to adversely affect the adjacent areas. But this is, that's the process. You just keep fixing, fix, turn the model, fix, turn the model, fix, turn the model, and you just keep doing that until it looks pretty good from most angles. And that's all you can really hope for. So anyway, yeah, so I guess, yeah, I'm going to call this a pretty successful tech demo. I'm pretty satisfied. I don't think the screen is shaking. I had been kind of concerned that the stand for the iPad was not going to be solid enough, and that like my hand moving on the desk was going to shake the screen. And like you can see here, when I actually try to do that, it's shaking a bit, but not too much. But like just my because when I sculpt, I usually leave one finger braced against the surface just to keep everything rigid. And that much motion doesn't seem to be shaking the camera too much, which is good. I'm happy to see that. Yeah, and overall, I mean, the light is good. The light is kind of annoying because I've gotten 2 new halogen lights recently, which are going to be necessary because the again, the video rig blocks the angle of my 2 normal lights. Whereas my 2 new halogen lights can reach, they're on kind of like flexible necks, and they can poke into this area here. The downside is, wow, are they ever warm? So as we head into the summer, I am not going to be enjoying shooting these for very long periods of time with these extra lights. But, what are you going to do? And then something else I may investigate if, I mean, I don't know anything about this, but if there's a way for me to I'm going to chop this video up, maybe. I mean, it's 40 minutes long. I doubt that I want to have a 40-minute video, or that I even can put a 40-minute video on my YouTube. But regardless of whether I can, one thing I may want to do instead is like live stream. Maybe I may just have like, hey, I'm going to be sculpting today. So, throw a, I don't know. I'm assuming an iPad can live stream. I'm assuming that is technology that the Apple Corporation has sorted out, or that some enterprising third-party entity has sorted that out. So I mean, that may be a better way to do this. I mean, like sculpting it's not a work for 10 minutes and make amazing results happen. Like what you're looking at here is probably like 12 hours of work already. Admittedly, 12 hours of very slow work. I was very sidetracked. And I was kind of futzing over detail that maybe I didn't need to. But anyway, it's slow work. And so a live stream where people fully expect that it's going to take several hours may be a better format for this type of thing than an edited YouTube video. However, if it does work, one thing that may be more appropriate for the edited YouTube format is like individual tutorials. So one thing that I'm almost certainly going to do is the next time I do a full scratch sculpt, or maybe I won't even wait, maybe I'll just do one on its own. I will probably go through the entire process of starting with an armature diagram on a piece of paper, and then pulling out wire, bending the wire, making a skeleton according to the diagram, embedding it in a piece of cork, putting putty over it, putting clay over the putty, and then building basic musculature. So essentially everything, all of the boring, repetitious parts that I do at the start of every single one of my video, or of my my articles, and I always do, like anyone who reads through my articles, I always go through those steps, and sometimes I'll skim a little bit, but I always provide the details ultimately. And I always worry that people who do read my blog on a regular basis get really sick of reading that over and over again. So one thing I may do is just record one really good video of that rigging process, which takes about 2 hours usually, but record myself doing it, chop it down to just the important bits, and then make like a series of 10-minute videos maybe that cover that process, so that I can, when I do write an article, I can post that video of myself, you know, kind of in theory doing the process, and then just cut to the point in the new project that's after what would come in that video, unless something interesting happened during that, you know, that particular project. Anyway, so this just ticked over past the 40-minute mark. I am going to end the video. If anybody got up to this part, I mean, good for you, I guess. Like I said, this was mostly just a tech experiment. I just wanted to see how all this worked. And if you guys can, if anyone did get this far, let me know how the image quality came out. I mean, there's not a lot I can do about the image quality, but do you find this a good enough level of zoom, a good enough quality of focus, in order to get the details about what I'm doing and understand how I'm achieving the results that I'm achieving? Are you learning? Is it either entertaining or informative, or both? But either one is fine. So, and I definitely need to build up some discipline. I need to stop wandering the model. Like, I'm only moving the model 2 inches, but it goes off screen. So I need to really build up that discipline about like not moving the model too far from here. So yeah, no, this ultimately not a great video, but I think I have just learned a ton about the process of how I might do these videos in the future, which is great. So if it turns out that I can in fact upload 42 minutes and onward, oh wow, this is really going, a video to my YouTube channel, which again, due to some copyright strikes in the past, may not be possible anymore. But if I can, I'll just upload the whole thing, and you can just be bored and watch it. If I can't do that, I will chop it down 15 minutes and upload that. And so you may, I don't know at this point when I'm recording whether you're going to see this in its full 42-minute glory, almost 43, or if you're just going to see some highlights. In either case, thank you very much for watching my first actual proper sculpting video. I've posted some in the past that were completely terrible and impossible to make out because I was doing them on a horrible quick cam. But yeah, so we'll, yeah, I'm reasonably encouraged. I think this worked out pretty well. So thanks for watching, and definitely give me any feedback you can think of. Don't just say, yay, Spud, that was great. Actually, let me know, like, this worked, here's what could be better, and maybe some suggestions about some things that you might like to see me demonstrate. I mean, because now that I've got all this rigged up, I mean, if you just want to see some random technique demonstrated or something, it's pretty easy for me to crap out a video about it. So, yeah, let me know. Let me know how that works out for everybody. All right, I'm going to hit the stop button now.